I thought everything was working really well, and then I started discovering some problems. Here are the problems that I've found so far in the T-Mobile home internet and where I'm at in my plan to resolve them. And I just want to let you know ahead of time that I'm still very much optimistic and excited about what this service is going to do, not only just for me, but for all of us as consumers. It's going to give us more choice. Many of us have been stuck overpaying for crappy service through a duopoly of a cable company and a phone company, and now we have companies like T-Mobile and Starlink entering the market and finally providing some competition.
Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here. Well, it was time for another Tools and Tech Tuesday, but it's past time now, and I thought that's what this was going to be. I thought I was going to be able to tell you the issues that I've had with the T-Mobile home internet and how they got resolved. Unfortunately, I'm still in the process of working with customer service and trying to figure out everything and get it working the way I want it. So I thought I would tell you instead the limitations that I believe this system has and how I plan to overcome them. So whether you're like me, coming from a connection that is both overpriced and unreliable, or just one or the other, you're probably very excited to have another potential solution to getting internet into your house. And I'm still really excited about what T-Mobile has to offer. I think they've done a really good job at trying to give us a one-size-fits-all solution for internet and make it really easy for people. And the setup process really was pretty easy. But the trouble, as I see it, is that not everybody's internet needs are all the same. And so in trying to make a one-size-fits-all solution, unfortunately, it leaves some of us a little unsatisfied. So in my opinion, they did a really good job of trying to keep this box simple and therefore the setup pretty simple, but unfortunately there's a couple of side effects of that. And so first of all, there's no connections for an external antenna. So if you are not happening to get the best signal inside of your house, unfortunately you have no ability to put an external antenna out on your roof and connect it to this particular box. And so far what we've talked about is the signal between the cell phone tower and this box. But now the next part of the chain is getting the signal from this box through your Wi-Fi to your devices. And it has the ability to do 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Unfortunately, the second limitation of this thing, in my opinion, is that there's no external antennas for the Wi-Fi, and it doesn't seem to be super strong. So unfortunately, if you have a rather large house, or a house that has certain building materials or a lot of walls or whatever, you may not get Wi-Fi all the way throughout your house with this thing. In my case, I have aluminum siding on the house and I'm unable to get Wi-Fi out to the garage with this. Now for the third limitation, their documentation states that the device can handle up to 20 devices. 10 on the 2.4 gigahertz band and 10 on the 5 gigahertz band. Now the 5 gigahertz band is typically going to be faster, but it's not going to propagate through walls as well. So you're going to have to pick and choose which devices you're putting on what band, if you're able to select it with that particular device. The problem is some devices you are not able to select which band. Some devices only support 2.4 gigahertz, so that's what you're stuck with for that particular device. Unfortunately for me, this presents a little bit of a limitation because I have so much stuff. I have security cameras, I have a phone, tablet, a couple of TVs, I have my laptop, I have smart bulbs, I have Google Home Minis, I have Echo Dots, other smart home gadgets like smart home locks, things like that. And so that 20 device limit is going to pose a little bit of a problem for me. So initially my solution to the first half of this problem, and really the second half, was going to be this here. This is the Netgear LB1120. That's LB1120, and it is an LTE modem that has the ability to connect an external antenna, which is what this is. And so I was going to connect up this external antenna, point this at the cell phone tower. I made it so I can tilt it up and down, and of course I could go side to side, get it directly aimed at the cell phone tower, and hope that that would give me the best signal possible, and then connect my Orbi routers that already give me good coverage, can handle a ton of devices, and this was going to be my setup. Unfortunately for me, I found out that that solution just won't work after messing around with this thing for hours and wondering what I was doing wrong. I tried calling the T-Mobile technical support, and they were closed for the night. So I called back the following day, and the guy was really nice, really knowledgeable, but unfortunately for me, they are not allowing their SIM card to be used in other devices. So when I took the SIM card out of the device that they sent and put it into this so I could hook up that directional antenna and then hook up my own router system, it's not registering on the network, and that's intentional because they don't want to have a ton of different devices to have to learn how to support. They're trying to roll out this service in all these different areas, and they're pretty new to it, and so I can definitely understand it. It's just very unfortunate for me. This would have solved all the issues for me. And it's really unfortunate because here's where we get to the next limitation, because this would have taken care of limitations number 2 and 3, where I said it doesn't have a very strong signal Wi-Fi wise as far as getting from to the box to your devices, and it doesn't have the ability to connect any external antennas, and it has that number of device limitation to 20. So unfortunately this would have taken care of that, but there's an issue where this particular box does not have the ability to go into what's called bridge mode. So in the early days of DSL and cable modems, you would typically just hook up your computer directly to the modem and be done with it. You would have internet, and then you would put a firewall on your computer. Later, they started coming out with consumer grade routers, and you would hear them say a lot of times be called a NAT router. That's network address translation. So one of the jobs of your router is where it gets its name. It routes the information that comes back to it from the internet to the devices that are connected to it. So if somebody's watching a YouTube video, it's on an iPad, it sends that video to the iPad. If someone is playing games on the Xbox, it sends all that stuff to the Xbox. Someone else is doing something on their laptop, it sends that stuff to the laptop. And all this stuff is called network address translation. Another thing that a router will a lot of times do is it will block things that it did not request. If it doesn't recognize where something came from, a lot of times it will just drop it. You can end up getting problems when you have two devices trying to do that same job, and it's called a dual NAT. And so you have the T-Mobile router saying, I'm in charge, and your other router saying, no, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. And it goes back and forth, and it causes confusion for certain apps and certain devices.
If you're wondering if you're suffering from a dual NAT or double NAT situation, here are some of the symptoms that I've had. I have a 3rd generation Roku out in the living room connected to a TV, and everything on that Roku worked just fine. Hulu and Prime and all the different video services worked just fine except for Netflix. Oddly, even though Netflix didn't work on the Roku box anymore, it worked perfectly on the Samsung Smart TV and on my iPad. All my Google Home Minis became disconnected from the internet, while my Amazon Echo Dots all continued working. All my Philips Hue smart bulbs stopped working, but my LifeX and some of the other brands that I've tried out all continued to work just fine. I was able to browse the web and watch Netflix on the laptop behind me, but when I went to the iTunes Music Store, it said it couldn't connect. When I tried to access a file on iCloud Drive, it said there was an authentication error. All this behavior of certain devices and apps working while others wouldn't seemed very strange. And so in my investigation, I decided to take this laptop closer to that T-Mobile gateway so I could connect directly to it through the Wi-Fi that it provides. And that's when everything like iCloud and the iTunes Music Store started working. So I decided to hook up the Roku where the Netflix wasn't working any longer directly to the T-Mobile box, and it started working flawlessly as well. That's how I knew some of these applications and devices were being affected by a dual NAT situation.
So all that could be solved with a feature called Bridge Mode. And so if they added Bridge Mode to that T-Mobile box, it would literally just let the information go in and out directly to your router, and your router would take care of routing the information to all the devices on your network. It would also take care of that device limitation where you could only have so many devices connected to the T-Mobile box, because with the Orbi system in particular, you can have a lot of devices connected to it. So now alternatively, the only way that I think that we can solve the first issue with this system is by using some type of reflective antenna, like say a dish. If you have an old dish, you might be able to use that to reflect some of that radiation coming from the cell phone tower back at your box and help you get a better signal. So as for my current thinking on solutions for this issue, T-Mobile is working on being able to boost the signal to my router. As for the next part of the chain where you're getting the information out from the box to your devices, I still want to hook up my Orbi routers, but I'm thinking that I can probably put them in access point mode. So what I'm going to have to do is reset them and see if they have an ability to put themselves into access point mode where it allows the T-Mobile router to act as the router and do all the routing, and they will just essentially be like antennas. As of right now, I'm waiting for the T-Mobile tech to call me back. He said he's going to talk with some of the engineers and get their opinion on the situation, and right now their hours are already cut down because of COVID, and tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so we'll see what happens. I'll follow up with another video letting you know what I've learned along the way and what solutions that we've been able to come up with. If you have any suggestions for me, please leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to hear them. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you next time. Now, so far we've talked about the ability for... So far we've talked about the ability to get the cell phone. The second limitation is the second chain. So unfortunately, if you have the third limitation is that their documentation claims that it can handle up to 20 devices. 10 on the 10.4 gigahertz intentional, so they don't have to everything's good, and that's why at the time one of the things that they do that you'll hear, at least in the beginning, that you would hear a lot of them say, so one of the jobs of your router is where it gets So one of the jobs of your router is where it gets its So as far as my current thinking on solutions for this issues, so that's where we're at.
Here are the problems that I've found so far with the T-Mobile home internet, and And I just want to let you know ahead of time that I am still very much optimistic and excited about what this service is going to offer not only me, but all of us as consumers for paying for one of two companies, usually a duopoly. So many of us have been stuck overpaying for crappy service from a duopoly of a cable even though it didn't work on the Roku box, Netflix.
Yet, thank you so much for watching the video.